Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame being released right around the corner, I felt like this was the perfect time to kick off my MCU videos. I'm Garrett, and in this list we're going to count down the top 13 highest grossing films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, this list is going to be specific to just the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so that does exclude any X-Men film, Deadpool, Blade, and the Sony Spider-Man films. In at the number 13 spot, we have Thor: The Dark World. It brought in $644 million. While this isn't the most memorable of the MCU films, it is often regarded as one of the worst, mainly because of the direction that was taken behind the scenes. Originally, Patty Jenkins was brought in to direct this film, however she left Marvel due to creative differences and went on to direct DC's Wonder Woman. In her place, Alan Taylor was brought in to direct Thor: The Dark World, who was probably best known for directing episodes of Game of Thrones, Sex and the City, and The Sopranos. Because of Patty leaving the project, actress Natalie Portman had a different mindset moving forward and didn't want to be a part of the project any longer. On to number 12 with a little bit more of a memorable showing with Doctor Strange. It brought in $676 million and was nominated for an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. This film introduced us into the world of the mystic arts. Though we saw a little bit of magic from Loki and the Thor films, Doctor Strange is a whole nother animal. Bringing in Benedict Cumberbatch to portray Dr. Stephen Strange was absolutely brilliant because I can't see how anybody else could have done a better job. It's almost as if this role was made for him, just like Tony Stark was made for Robert Downey Jr. In at number 11 we get to my personal favorite in the MCU, which is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It brought in $714 million and was a sequel to Captain America: The First Avenger. Even though many people went into this film knowing that the Winter Soldier was actually Bucky Barnes, this film still did so much better than its predecessor. It introduced Anthony and Joe Russo into the MCU and showed us what they're capable of doing, which was something very unique and unorthodox in the world of comic book films. This film touched on modern issues such as the argument of security or liberty, which shined a light on some things that every audience would be able to relate to. Number 10 brings us Guardians of the Galaxy. This is the first film in the MCU to really show how large this universe could actually be. It introduces several new characters which audiences are immediately in love with. With the music played in this film and all the comedy that goes with it, it's not hard to see how it grossed $770 million. For number 9, we return to Asgard and Thor: Ragnarok. Featuring a much lighter take on the character, this film felt a little more like Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of the music being used and the comedic tones of it. This film also ties the story of Ragnarok from Norse mythology interestingly well with the set of the MCU, and even using it to lead the story directly into the hands of Thanos and Infinity War. Bringing in $846 million, this film not only introduced us to a more comical Thor, but also a more badass version of Thor as he discovers himself as the God of Thunder. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 brings back the same cast with a fresh story that focuses primarily on the background of Peter Quill, introducing us to his father, Ego the Living Planet. With just as much comedy and great music as the first, this sequel earned $862 million and a clear spot on this list. Featuring your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, number 7 is Spider-Man: Homecoming, with a gross of $880 million. Yes, Spider-Man is rebooted once again, but this time Peter is an actual teenager in high school, and Spider-Man gets to team up with and learn from Iron Man. Though the only backstory we get in this film is word of mouth, is totally fine because we've already seen 2 Spider-Man films show us how Peter becomes Spider-Man. Coming in at number 6 is our first film which is going to break the billions, Captain America: Civil War, with $1.1 billion. This film had friends and family divided down the center as people were either siding with Captain America or with Iron Man. This film had so much in it, it introduced us to Spider-Man and to Black Panther for the first time in the MCU. And in this film we got to witness the catalyst which would divide the Avengers that would inevitably become their downfall and Infinity War. Iron Man 3 comes in the 5th spot, bringing in $1.2 billion. In this film we see more of a story about Tony Stark learning how to be a hero without being Iron Man. This would come into play later during Spider-Man: Homecoming when Tony would pass this knowledge on to Peter, telling him if he is nothing without the suit, then he doesn't deserve to have it. In this film, we get to see Tony for the majority of the film without his suit, learning how to be a hero as Tony Stark versus as Iron Man. Coming in at number 4, we received the highest grossing film to feature a black superhero since the Blade trilogy. Wakanda is beautifully showcased within Marvel's Black Panther with a grossing of $1.3 billion. Featuring a brand new cast alongside gorgeous art direction, we get to see the story of Wakanda and the history of the Black Panther, which is shown to be very important within Infinity War as it's the most secure place on Earth. With such a unique and interesting story as this, it makes sense for it to have such a high grossing. For number 3 on this list, we have Avengers Age of Ultron, which features the titular villain, one of my personal favorites, who is voiced brilliantly by James Spader. At $1.4 billion, this film also introduces 2 other new superheroes in Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. This not only stands alone as an awesome superhero film, but it also furthers the overall MCU story by placing doubt in the mind of one of its most important characters in the overall series, Tony Stark, reminding him of what he saw in the black hole.
That up there, that's the Endgame.
The number 2 spot on this list goes to The Avengers, grossing $1.5 billion. This film was the first superhero movie to fully link previous movies into an extended universe, and it did so with flying colors. Being able to show character development and growth along with the needed chemistry for characters who have never met before, this movie could have flopped hard, but instead it succeeded and changed the entire landscape of the superhero genre forever. And of course, at number 1, we have Avengers Infinity War, bringing in over $2 billion. This film was 10 years in the making and was the climax that we've been waiting for ever since the first post-credits scene that featured Thanos. Never before has there been 18 individual feature-length films that build up another individual film. And when it finally arrived, we saw amazing performances, awesome action, in-depth special effects, and so much more. And although that might sound impressive in and of itself, Avengers Endgame is going to take this to a whole nother level, as it's had 21 films to build up and has been very secretive about the plot of the film. With reviews already coming in about Captain Marvel, it's not looking too good for this film, however. It so far has received the worst rating among all MCU films on IMDb.com, reporting a 5.8 out of 10. Although Rotten Tomatoes is reporting an 84%, this is only from 170 voters versus the 8,000 plus votes that IMDb has. Avengers Endgame, however, I believe is going to steal the box office for the entire year and become the highest grossing film in the MCU franchise. I want to thank you guys for watching. Go ahead, hit like for more videos like this. Click subscribe. Go ahead and visit me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon. Thanks guys, and have a great day.